Nannette de Gaspé, you're from Toronto. You lived in New York and you moved to Montreal in 1996?
Yes, exactly.
What did you like about Montreal?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I did my undergrad degree here at McGill, and I loved the culture of Montreal because it's the mix of the French, the English, the creativity,
right.
and I think that the people just really embrace life here, which is really wonderful.
But you fell in love with someone.
Yes, my husband, Philippe. I actually met him in Toronto, and then we moved to New York together, and then Montreal. And we arrived here 2 weeks before our first son was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what were you doing in Toronto and New York?
I was working in banking and corporate finance at the time.
When you married your husband, you also got married to a very well-known family, de Gaspé. It's a very special heritage. Can you tell me about it?
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting because when I married my husband, we were living in Toronto. And then, as I was saying, then we moved to New York. When we moved to Montreal, I suddenly became Mrs. Philippe de Gaspé.
You realized?
Yes, I didn't. Yes, exactly. And my husband's family came to Canada 400 years ago from France, and they were given lands by Louis XIV. And so they have a long history in Canada. They, he always laughs. He says they were the first millionaires and the first ex-millionaires. They did many businesses. They were in lumber. They were in beer, Frontenac beer, and a number of things.
They were builders, they were in politics,
exactly.
Now media mogul as well,
yes.
Giant in the communication field.
Yes.
And you decided to start a beauty line with that name.
Yes,
Nannette de Gaspé. Was that a risk?
You know, one of the things that this project has been really helpful for me in this business is that as a woman, I find it, for myself, I'll speak about myself, but I think a lot of women feel the same way. We tend to let our fears hold us back and to second guess ourselves. And often over the years, there were things I wanted to do and ways I wanted to grow, but I had the fear. And the fear held me back. And then I would look to others for advice. And if they advised me in a way that was different than the way I believed, I would take that advice as opposed to using my own intuition. And when it came to this project for the first time, and I think it's because of, my personal evolution over the last few years and working on myself, I decided that I would not let my fears hold me back. I would just go forward. And
right, you have to tell me what you were looking for, because when I met you, I felt that you were a fantastic financial advisor, great mom, but I felt that something was missing.
When I was a banker, I did it and I enjoyed doing it, but that's what I knew. So I did what I did, right? And then when this was presented to me, I don't know, I became very passionate about it, and I just love it. I say every day, even a bad day is a good day. So I have this incredible passion, and maybe that's what propelled me forward. I also love the whole idea of, helping women with providing, when I thought about what is this brand about, what's the vision of this brand? And I realized for me it was about bringing revolutionary cosmetic solutions to women and men, ironically, because men have been buying the masks.
Tell me about your line.
Okay. So basically, the line Nannette de Gaspé is, the easiest way to describe it is a waterless or a dry mask. We call it wearable technology meets luxury cosmetics. And it has two technologies that are incorporated in the product. And they were both created by a female scientist from Quebec.
We have to name two lovely ladies who created the technology.
Yes.
Karine Théberge, Isabelle Goudreau. Tell me about them.
Okay, so Karine and Isabelle, I guess it's been about 10 years now. And they created this technology and they presented it to me, and I started to work with them. And basically what it is I'll explain the technology. It's something called a biomimetic microvector, which is a delivery system. So it delivers active ingredients deep into the system. It creates a reservoir under the skin and feeds and nourishes the skin upward for 6 to 8 hours. And
it's quite unique.
It's very unique. And the other technology that they created, which goes hand in hand with it, is they created an ability to dry print the formulations on textiles. So you look at the fabric and it doesn't look like there's anything on it, but you put it on and you gently massage it from your heat and your body temperature and the pH. It infuses into your skin, and we've been able to show incredible results.
You're from the financial world. How did people react when you said that you wanted to do a beauty line?
Friends of mine who are fabulous people and who are very successful business people looked at me and they said, "Are you crazy? Why would you do that?" And it was very interesting for me because it doesn't matter what people think. I said, because it's all about the journey and the experience. And I realized I really wasn't attached to the outcome. I was so much enjoying the experience and building this business. And I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur, but I guess I'm an entrepreneur because I love it. You know, I really, really love it.
I read something that was like there was a study with 890 startups, and only 7% were startups by women. What can you tell women for them not to be scared of starting a new company?
Listen to your intuition, because that's what I realized I started to do. I listened to my intuition. You know, people said to me, "You don't know anything about the beauty industry. You can't compete. You can't go into the beauty industry." And I would say to them, "I don't know what I don't know." And that's a good thing, because then if I don't know, then I just go forward without the fear of, am I going to do it right? Because this is the way you're supposed to do it.
Right.
So I would say that, and don't be attached to the outcome. Just, you know, live the journey, live in the moment, live the journey, and every door will open. And if things don't work exactly the way they're supposed to work, it's for a reason, because then the next door will open, and the next door will open. And I strongly believe that. And because I've taken that approach, I believe that's why all these great doors have opened, and we're having the success that we're having, and will continue to grow.
How has it changed you?
How has it changed me? Well, I would say, you know, you could see I'm very passionate, but I'm very happy. And I think that as I go forward and I interact with people, because I'm happy and I'm excited about things, it's interesting to see people's reaction. You know, I'm full of energy because of it. And then when I connect with other people, we share our energy. And for me, that's a really wonderful thing.
Yeah. I've seen the difference. I said it earlier, but I felt you were looking for something a few years ago.
Yes.
There was something missing, and then you just found it.
You know what it is? It's interesting because we all, especially as mothers and women and mothers, because what happens is we go out into the world and we start to build our careers. And if we take the traditional route where we marry and we become mothers, often we have to step back from our careers. And sometimes, you know, we continue.
Which is what you did.
Yes, I did. I stepped back. I continued to work with my husband in private equity, but in a very, I guess, you know, quiet way is the best way to say it.
You were the silent partner. You were the one behind.
Exactly. And somewhere along the way, I think, you know, I lost myself and my identity. And as I said, I started to feel uncomfortable about going out there and following my intuition and doing what I think is right. And how have I changed? I'm not fearful to make choices. I don't check with other people to see whether it makes sense or not. You know, I just go forward. So, and I'm happier, I'm more fulfilled, you know?
So why was this a good time to start this business in your life?
Because when we step out and we focus on our family in general, our husbands, our children, we start to feel that we no longer have the skill set to go back into the business world.
Yeah.
And then what happens is our children start to get older, and they need less, and we start to feel that we need more because we've invested so much. You know, we invest in the traditional role of being the best wife and the best mother. And then as they need us less and less, we start to realize there's something missing in our lives. And often it's a little frightening to, we start thinking, well, we don't have the skill set anymore. How could we?
You thought you had lost it?
Well, it's interesting. As I was saying, I was working alongside my husband, but because I wasn't out in a third party type business, I guess that's the way to describe it, out in the working world outside of our family businesses, I didn't feel that I would be perceived as still having the same skill set that I had when I was working in corporate finance in New York, and I guess there was a little bit of an insecurity in me about going out beyond our businesses into the real world, so to speak.
And promoting yourself.
Yeah, and I think that women, what happens with us is, so when we start to realize that we have lost something along the way and we look to fulfill ourselves, we tend to have different approaches. Some women gradually try to get back into the workforce, often at a level where not where they left, but a little below, because they have to start rebuilding. And if they have the opportunity to do it, it's absolutely wonderful to get back in, because a lot of people look and say, well, you've been out of the workforce for these many years, not recognizing that managing the family and everything, and juggling everything that goes with that, helps you develop as a manager far beyond. It really does. I really believe a lot of the skills that you learn in managing the family life, your spouse, your children, etc., really help you, because there's a lot of psychology involved in it. And I really believe in business, there's a lot of success revolves around psychology, using the right psychology when you're approaching things.
Is it the right time to start a business in your 50s?
It's funny you say that, because I had lunch with my father-in-law when I turned 50. I'm announcing that. And he said to me, dear, he said, what are you planning to do with your career? He said, because it's the beginning of the second half of your life. And he said, you have 50 more years. What are you going to do? And I said, wow, because I had never really thought about that. And I thought, well, as you just asked the question, I think if you had asked me a few years ago, I would have said, oh gosh, when I turned 50, at my age now, it's too late. I should have done that. I should have fulfilled my dream of being an entrepreneur or taking risks, or when I was 30 or 35. I'm too old for that. But when he said that to me, you've got half your life to live. I looked at him and I thought, he's right, I have half my life to live. And I feel like I'm 30 years old.
Nannette de Gaspé, what's your definition of success?
My definition of success, and it's something that has evolved over the years, and what I realize is success is about finding true happiness and contentment from within. And I look at my children, and I was brought up with certain belief systems that you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to achieve this, and those are belief systems that my parents put onto me, and that society in general, the society that we live in, and the expectations about succeeding and defining success. And what I realized was that, because I saw a lot of people that had achieved so much, either had achieved what they wanted academically, had achieved what they wanted financially, and weren't necessarily happy. It really made me recognize that all that mattered was to find happiness and contentment from within, and whatever path that took us on, whether you wanted to be a humanitarian or whether you wanted to be a big banker, if you were passionate and fulfilled by the experience, like I now am with the business I'm working with, that's all that mattered.
That's when it lights up.
That's my definition. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you light up as a human being.
Yes, exactly. So when you say to me, you've changed, I see something different in you, it's because I did redefine what was success for me,
What I hear is that from all the things you guys invested in the last year, this is the most successful business you have.
Well, it's doing real. My husband is really great because he's very supportive, so he always tells everybody that. But yes, we're doing really well, and it's just fun. Every day is fun.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Merci. Thank
Merci
you.
beaucoup, Nannette.
Merci.